Hey, what's up, Silas here? This is going to be a video about smoke signals. Now, not smoke signals in the Native American sense and like beating the drums and getting the signals up in the air, but I don't know if you guys know the slang of catch smoke. Catch smoke just means you're supposed to catch some fights. It's some slang that I've just been caught on and I've just seen it come up. But what do you guys have in mind? What kind of behavior do you think allows for somebody to hit somebody else? What kind of behavior needs to happen to you for you to think that, okay, now that's the point. You've crossed the line. Now I can come and hit you. What sort of behavior does it have to be where you see a situation, you see two people fighting, and you're like, oh man, what happened there? You see somebody throw a punch, you're like, oh, that's horrible. That guy shouldn't be hitting that person. And then you hear, oh no, that other person did this to that person. Then you're like, okay, yeah, I expect that. I would have hit that person too. What are the things that you think about that? Think about what would get person A to hit person X. What are the things to do that? What are the situations to get to that point? Because we recently just saw this fight in the NBA, National Basketball Association, it was involving three people. It was involving two teams, the Houston Rockets, and on the Houston Rockets side versus the Los Angeles Lakers. And the people involved in the fight on the Los Angeles Lakers side were Rajon Rondo and Brandon Ingram, and on the Houston Rockets side, it was mainly Chris Paul. But this thing started with James Harden going up for the Houston Rockets, going up for a layup, and then he got fouled by Brandon Ingram, and Brandon Ingram was upset about the foul, ends up pushing James Harden. Then James Harden kind of goes to the ref, and then Brandon Ingram looks like he's approaching the ref, but he might have been trying to talk to James Harden, but the ref was between them, and then Brandon Ingram gets pulled off by some of his teammates, and then Chris Paul comes by and he's still talking with Chris Paul is a teammate of James Harden, comes by and he's still talking to the ref about this. Rajon Rondo, who's a teammate of Brandon Ingram when the Los Angeles Lakers comes up, Chris Paul kind of has some body language where he's right in Rajon Rondo's face, puts his arms up, and then you get to the situation where you just all of a sudden see Rajon Rondo kind of rock back after Chris Paul puts his finger in Rajon Rondo's face, kind of rocks back, and then swings a left, and then they start throwing some punches. People start pulling them apart. Carmelo Anthony on the Houston Rockets and LeBron James are there. They pull people apart and things like that. A few punches were being thrown. Brandon Ingram comes running back in, throws a sucker punch, and this whole mess bursts up. In the NBA, there's not normally that many fights, but this made the news. This was making the rounds and things on the weekend, and people were talking. Right after the match, right after the game, people were being interviewed, and even in the best of times, you don't really expect athletes to actually be honest about what they actually think. So they were just giving, oh, we don't know what happened, this is not good for the sport, etc., etc. But later on, more information came out. Rajon Rondo and Chris Paul have never liked each other, so that's already a beef going on. Chris Paul says that Rajon Rondo spit in his face, and that's why he actually went and washed his face with his finger, put his finger and just pushed him, and then that led up with Rajon Rondo punching him. So a lot of people were coming to the defense of the situation and saying, hey, that happens. It's not good for the team. It's not good for the situation. But if he's been sitting in the face, that's a bad situation. One person specifically, I just heard Shannon Sharpe was on the show Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe, these sports personalities. Shannon Sharpe played American football, played in the NFL before, and he was talking about the suspensions, because Brandon Ingram got suspended for 4 games, Chris Paul got 3 games, no, I think Rajon Rondo got 3 games, and Chris Paul got 2 games. I could be flipped over in those last 2. But he was saying that's not enough. He was saying Brandon Ingram should have been suspended for longer because that whole sucker punch, just coming in from outside of the fight and throwing a punch, even though he missed, that could lead to a situation where you really injure somebody badly. They were talking about, then he was talking about with Chris Paul, I'm laughing here, but just the way he says it, Shannon Sharpe has this way about him. And he was like, Chris Paul got way too few. He should have gotten 20-game suspension. And then Skip Bayless was like, what do you mean? Shannon Sharpe's like, he should have gotten 20-game suspension. Because if somebody spits in my face, they catching all that smoke. I would have still been whooping that guy's ass. So he's talking about somebody spitting in your face should be enough for you as a man to go out there and beat the living daylights out of this person. Because that's a level of such disrespect. People spit on the floor. He's like, my grandpa told me this. People spit on the floor. People pee on the floor. People step on the floor. So if somebody spits in your face, they're showing you that you are below even the floor. Like, you're deserving of actually, you need to go out there and rectify this thing. And of course, a lot of athletes have come out and talked about that. Like, yeah, you got to defend your turf. As a man, we understand this happens. It's wrong, but this happens. If somebody mushes you in the face, first of all, you got to punch him. If somebody spits you in the face, you got to punch him. So people have lines to say like, oh, if somebody comes at you in this certain way, you've got to defend yourself as a man. A lot of these people do this. But now, someone like Shannon Sharpe, one question I was trying to ask you guys before, what is the level? What kind of thing does somebody have to do to you for you to consider, okay, now I got to hit this person. Now I've got to get back at this person. Now, think about those things just by themselves. Now, what changes those things? What are the factors that change this thing? Rajon Rondo and Chris Paul, they didn't like each other, around the same size. Now, I think it's like 6'3" or something, 6'3", maybe 200 pounds or 200 and something. Now, if it was LeBron James, who's like 6'8", 6'9", 260, 250 pounds, if one of those guys had mushed him in the face or spat at him, should he have gone at that person? Would that have been okay in that situation? Or is that a different situation? There was a previous one where a fan threw something at Ron Artest. This was years back, and Ron Artest jumped into the crowd, and that was a big deal, and they were talking about how much of a big deal it was, because, first of all, that's players going against people who are fans who paid to be there, so it's a different kind of power dynamic there. It looks different for the league, but that behavior is still there, that disrespect. So they're saying, okay, in that situation, maybe it's not right, but I bet in their private time, if you don't ask them on national television what they thought if Ron Artest did what he was supposed to do, people would have probably been like, no, that's okay. I mean, Ron Artest should have gone to the person. I think he went to the wrong person. He didn't even go at the person who actually threw the cup of water at him or cup of fluid at him. But I don't think people in their personal lives are really anti-Ron Artest for doing that. So people accept there's certain situations where, yeah, you're supposed to be able to go out and attack this person because this person has brought that attack on themselves. They've incentivized you to do this. So how about the power discrepancy, or getting in a situation where these same people who look at somebody like Donald J. Trump, people come at him verbally and then he responds verbally back at them. Oh, you shouldn't call people horse race. You shouldn't behave this way. You shouldn't be talking about NFL players. And if they're insulting the country you're president of and you're trying to make America great again, and these people are not making America great again in your mind, but you're not supposed to talk this. You're supposed to be the president. You're supposed to be above this. Well, Chris Paul is the president of the NBA Players Association. So should he, in his capacity as president, stand up and do this? And even there was a previous situation with Chris Paul actually leading some players in the back. I forget, he was from his old team or something like that. They got in an altercation on the court. Then in the backstage, he ended up leading some players to the back to the other person's locker room, and then kind of had a confrontation in there. And now it's kind of talked to him like, hey, president of the Players Association. I don't really see people saying, as the president, he should act better. He should act in a different way. And some people were commenting that maybe the whole mushing in the face after the spit, which actually was found in the film after they saw Rajon Rondo kind of had a little sneak thing where he actually spat in Chris Paul's face, and like, okay, that's incentivizing of the situation. So what's the situation where you actually think that actually happens? If you actually think somebody spitting in your face, for whatever reason, if you're in a kind of argument like that, is enough for you to go and hit that person. Now, what if those genders are changed? We already talked about the size a bit. If it's LeBron James, 6'8", 250 pounds, against somebody who's 6 foot, 200 pounds, should he swing at that person? Maybe people would think, no. But if they're on the same basketball team, they'd be like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what you do, kind of what you expect. But now if it's a 6'8" Ron Artest or 6'5" Ron Artest going against a fan who is 5'10", the size discrepancy might be the same. Okay, that's different because of the situation there. But now, yeah, what if you switch the genders? What if it's a situation where it's a man and a woman? Now, the woman does the same exact thing. And back in the day, back in high school, I used to say this dumb thing. It might be considered dumb right now. But I was just wondering, if we're talking about equality, first of all, let me say, I don't think men and women are equal. I don't. I mean, everything that's good for the goose is not good for the gander. Otherwise, we'd all be geese. But we're different. So we have different expectations. But somebody who says women and men should be treated equally, then I was just wondering, look, if I as a man could go out there and say certain things to another man, and that's enough for that man to hit me, and you just think, yeah, you should expect that. You kind of brought that hit onto yourself. If a woman does that same thing, should she be hit for the same thing? If a woman spits in a man's face, calls him all these things, belittles him in that point, should the man be allowed to hit the woman back? If a woman mushes a man in the face, puts her hands on him, should he be allowed to hit her? If a woman actually hits a man first, should he be allowed to hit her? And you see these kind of situations where I just saw this recent film. There's just a thing where there's one where somebody was doing that floss dance from from what's it called, from Fortnite, and it was at some ATM machine, and then the woman was being filmed standing behind him and standing in front of him, and then she looks back and sees him, and then she just swings back and punches him in the face. You read the comment section, oh, he should deserve that, ha ha ha, oh, she must have thought he was doing this, but he wasn't doing anything. He literally had not put hands on her, hadn't spat on her, and then punch in the face. Is that allowed? Another one, some woman was kind of just bouncing back and forth in a little boxing thing on those machines where you have that little ball that you hit and it tells you the numbers of the strength. And there's a guy kind of standing off to the side looking at the thing. And then right before she swings, she kind of cocks to the side and swings and punches the guy in the face. Comment section again, oh, he must have done something to expect that hit or blah, 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 this and this, making excuses. Yet, if you have the gender switched around, people are automatically realize that, no, you're not supposed to do that. There's this kind of thing, you're not supposed to hit women. For whatever reasons you want in there. I mean, now, if you take that situation a little further, and this is one of the parts I want to focus on this. I just recently released a video of this mother in Texas going and whipping her kid with a belt after the kid took her new BMW on a joyride. And people in there, oh, this is how you impart discipline. This is how you get your kid to respect you. There is no respect in that, because if you're talking about these things where a man can do something to actually initiate a situation where you should hit the person, yet in most of those situations you'll accept that a woman shouldn't be hit for doing those situations because there's a difference there. What kind of situation do you actually imagine that a child can actually call upon a beating, can do something that would be deserving of you to beat them? When somebody spits in your face and you're trying to hit that person from that, you're not hitting that person expecting that person to learn discipline, expecting that person to all of a sudden respect you. It's a situation where that person spit in your face, you feel disrespected, you feel, okay, now I'm going to impart my power and strength on you and subjugate you to my will out of my frustration. That's why you're going to punch that person. Because that's normally why people say, oh, men can't hit women, because that's a situation where you are overpowering the woman. You're using your male strength and things like that to subjugate somebody else. Take that further and understand it with kids. There's no power discrepancy bigger than that. I can't really imagine a situation where that kind of interaction is considered, oh, this is discipline, this is learning behavior, this is learning respect. And I don't know. So you guys let me know this. There was that recent fight also in the UFC, Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Could be saying that name wrong. I'm not going to try and say it again in this video. But it got in a situation where in the run-up to it, Conor was going at him, saying some really grimy things to him. Khabib was kind of sitting back, taking it. And during the fight, Khabib was actually, you could see he was taking the person. He was like, talk now, let's talk now, let's talk now. The position where he actually slapped him in the face with one hand and then held his hand up to show like, yeah, I slapped you. Really disrespected him in that certain way. Was really heated. Carried out after the fight. Corner man was talking nasty. Khabib ran out, jumped into the crowd. And that kind of situation where he was like, look, I have to defend myself. He's like, look at all these things this person said. So even with Khabib, he thought there's certain things that if you say to a man, as a man, I have to go and defend myself in that situation. Was that imparting respect? Was that imparting some kind of situation there? Imparting some kind of consequences for one's actions? Is that the kind of situation that you see it? Now, if that's between two men, how come it doesn't work between a man and a woman? And then why do a lot of people think it can work between parents and children? Yeah. One last thing, this is something that I was just like thinking, I was like making like a parody video just to kind of make fun of these things and like make a poem where it's kind of like people can't really tell if it's real. And it's the kind of thing, if you think something's absurd and you actually get out there, it's actually going to come out, and you actually look and you see somebody actually doing this. In the comment section of one of the videos, people are like, oh, they're talking so badly about this thing because it's the NBA. Like, I wonder why. People are trying to make it a racial situation. They're like, oh, look how fighting is treated in hockey. Like, it's treated in a whole different way. Now, fighting is part of hockey. It's not because it's predominantly white sport, watched by mostly white people, and then now it's black athletes in this. No. It's also a lot of black athletes defending this violent behavior and talking about how in the streets, this is what you do, this is what you do, that. And then people talk about how, oh, there's nothing about black culture that actually involves being in this kind of fight kind of environment. Yet at the same time, these same black athletes who say, oh, don't judge black culture this way, we'll talk about how, as in the streets, which the streets is normally black people, in the streets, this is what we gotta do to defend ourselves. So there's this whole mix-up of things in there. But yeah, that's it for the video. like, share, and subscribe. Links below in the low bar to the video. I mean, just search online. There's tons of videos about this fight. You can find things there, but links below in the video to the merchandise store. And that's it for now. Like, share, and subscribe. Goodbye. So as I was listening to things about this and finding out other information, turns out there was a previous fight between the Lakers and the Houston Rockets, or an incident that occurred between Kermit Washington and Rudy Tomjanovich. There was a situation where two players were being tied up. It was a Lakers player and a Houston Rockets player. Kermit was on the Lakers, and then Rudy seems to be running over to kind of like break it up. And then Kermit just winds up and throws a punch and apparently devastated this man's face, this man Rudy's face. Cracked his skull, broke part of his face, broken jaw, and things like this. And that really changed, I think, how fighting was approached in the NBA. And they were talking about how the suspensions back then was like 27 games or something like that, and how now it was just a few games. So they're talking about the changes that have happened in this. Anyway, I'm advising we go away from fighting. The world is getting more and more peaceful. I hear people talk about how, oh, in the past, in football games, yeah, we used to just actually fight, and in sports games, it was more like manly and things like this. Yeah. And back in Incan times, people used to play games where, like, the losing team, or was it the winning team? I don't know. It was twisted. But one of the teams, I think it was actually the winning team. Like, they were playing to win this, and then the winning team would be sacrificed, or they would play with people's heads. I don't want to go back to those kind of sports. I would not watch them. Would you? Goodbye.